We now have another expert. It's Mr. Curran, who's on the line. He's a professor of cybersecurity at Ulster University, a regular technology contributor to TV, radio, trade and consumer IT magazines, and one of the most interviewed technology experts in the UK with over 2,000 plus interviews in recent years. Well, 2001, this makes it, this particular interview. Thank you very much for coming on.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. From a cybersecurity perspective, Professor Curran, what were the key vulnerabilities in the Horizon IT system that could have led to the accounting discrepancies and subsequent wrongful prosecution of sub-postmasters?
Yeah. Fujitsu's Horizon software was riddled with technical faults, including rounding errors, data corruption, and issues with synchronization between the local and the central databases. And also then the software was also what we call closed source. So you couldn't examine it, and that made it difficult for sub-postmasters to verify the accuracy of their accounts or investigate any discrepancies which occurred. And they didn't have access to detailed transaction logs. And then that made it very difficult, impossible actually, to challenge the software's calculations or identify specific errors. And of course, in cybersecurity, transaction logs or logs on a system are crucial for being able to trace whatever happens on a system. For instance, again, that most large companies, for instance, have systems, again, which are able to track every single request to the system, see who accessed it, what time it was, what software was used, and these things allow us to crawl back the system, see where the bug was and where the transaction occurred. And really, and it came down to the double accounting error, again, which has been in existence since 3000 BC. But again, it is a very complex system. Again, in general, the Horizon system was processing 6 million transactions per day, and it was synchronizing with machines elsewhere in the thing. And even back in 20 years ago, when Horizon was out for tender again, that Fujitsu boasted that it was Europe's largest non-military IT contract again. That even the system itself has over 100,000 documents for the documentation alone again. But it doesn't excuse what happened, which was horrendous really again, because banks like the NHS, Barclays, UBS and all these, they have systems which are more complex as well. That systems nowadays are very complex. In fact, I'm always amazed that my computer doesn't crash multiple times per day, because I know the lines of code in your Windows operating system is over 100 million again, and you have so much interacting that it's incredible how stable our systems really are. And the fact that no one really believed them, that this was a system error really, I mean, that beggars belief really, where computers can of course make mistakes again. It's from humans again. And simple thing, just for the people who don't know anything about computers again, that from childhood when you learn about maths, everyone would understand the equation 2 plus 2 equals 4. So 2 plus 2 equals 4. But when it comes to computers, when we're comparing something, say when you log in with your password again, that the system again, obviously you can tell that the system must somehow check that your password is correct. And the difference when a computer system checks something, it doesn't use equal, it uses equal. So we go basically password entered equal whatever is stored in the system, and then that allows you in if they do equal each other. But it's equal. So you can imagine that if you're just waking up with a fuzzy brain or whatever else, again, a computer coder, apart from a beginner, would never do it, but you could easily use equal rather than equal, and then that would make every password that anyone typed in legitimate. If you were to do that again, just one simple equal missing renders every password useless again. So one line of code, not even one line of code, one character missing can lead to horrendous errors again. So computer systems are as complex as you might imagine they are again. But really it came down to the double entry system here. And of course there's many questions we could ask again that about the transactions really. But it was like all things, it comes down to lack of data integrity and this poor system design and testing. The interface was quite complicated. Sub-postmasters only had 1 day of training for something which is quite complex, this system again. So there was so many issues really in the rollout of this. system.
What does that tell us about maintaining these critical systems? Do they require maintenance, or is it just that the initial coding was off?
Oh no, they require maintenance again, Dad. And unless you have all the time in the world, really, very few. I mean, it's almost impossible to write a computer system unless it's the most simple computer system ever. To roll it out to customers and for it to work perfectly every time. That all systems have bugs. That's why we have updates on all your apps, and we get them all the time because things are found, and generally things are only found when it comes to real world usage again. So even with the best intentions, a coder, again, it's very, when it comes to essays, again, when you're younger or when you're going to college, whatever, you learn that it's almost impossible to proof check your own writing. That's why you should always give it to a third party to read your essay, and then they will find things again. So it's the same with coders when it comes to checking their own systems again. Now, there are, of course, automated tests. There are, software which helps with all this again, but generally you have to be able to, again, just have a really good line of being able to test your systems, put them out, fix the bugs again. So again, it was a complex system again, but it really came down to the double accounting, which really didn't do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. So then this evidence, this digital evidence that were used against the sub-postmasters was considered to be absolute because it was digital. It was a computer. What role does digital evidence play in legal proceedings today, and how can cybersecurity professionals ensure that the integrity and reliability of such evidence is upheld to prevent these injustices?
Yeah, it's the foundation of cases, really. Again, it's digital evidence is the backbone for both the prosecution and defense in criminal and civil cases. So this can include emails, transaction logs, again, which the transaction logs were not done properly in the system, and then user activity records and system access logs again. So again, all this is very important for preventing miscarriage of justice again. And it comes down to, in the police notice, the chain of custody is crucial. In other words, that you have to, that the police or anyone recording records have to maintain meticulous records documenting the chain of custody. So, for instance, nowadays, as you know, whenever people are under investigation, they don't leave the buildings with boxes of paper anymore. It's the whenever there's a serious crime committed or whatever, it's the tablets, the phones, all the electronic equipment is carted out of someone's house or office. Then it goes back to police custody again, and then what they have is things taking the evidence off the laptops again. And what we have is write blockers, or the police use write blockers, for instance. That means that nothing can be written back to the device. And if they're examining phones, for instance, they do that within a Faraday cage. Because if you turn the phone on of a criminal suspect, they can do it, you can imagine, they could wipe the phone, for instance, remotely if there was an internet connection the minute it's turned on again. So of course the police know they have training for all this as well. And again, it's crucial because, of course, the defense, because the police are working for the prosecution, for the Crown. So therefore, if they didn't follow the appropriate chain of evidence again, that the defense in all cases would challenge this and find weaknesses, and of course the case could be thrown out again because they didn't follow proper procedures. And again, that's why it's interesting. I do a lot of work with legal cases. Again, I'm an expert witness in many legal cases, so I work, and so I have to travel to the police service in Northern Ireland to their cybercrime unit quite often. And again, I know them, but again, that most police services now around the country are understaffed because everything is stored on digital media again, and there's only so many people working with digital crime because they have to be highly trained. And what surprised me was you just can't. You think, well, why doesn't the digital crime units of all the police forces just hire computer scientists or computer engineers and bring them in? But they can't. First of all, they have to make them police officers, and the reason for that really is so that they understand the chain of evidence. So in other words, it takes 4 years for a cybercrime unit in some police service anywhere in London or wherever else you want, for them to actually add to their staff, because the person has to become a police officer first, and then they can enter the digital crime unit and become useful to the police service again. So and again, as you can imagine, it's highly complex again. And most of these are to do with hacking cases as well.
Yeah, I mean, with the problem with this post office inquiry in the beginning was that the police wasn't involved. It was a private investigation by the post office, and I assume that's definitely is the main reason why they had a kind of the monopoly. They had the power to suppress the sub-postmasters and the branch managers. But despite that, the post office actively suppressed concerns about the Horizon system's flaw. And but how can cybersecurity experts like yourself advocate for transparency and ethical practices when they suspect that the system is causing harm?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you should be able to raise concerns internally again, so be able to report anything about a system again, and also be able to seek collaborative resolution again. So maybe have dedicated work groups within the organization review any impact. And again, we have industry standards again, which can help us again, standards compliance again. And of course, external auditors can help again. But again, it's crucial that we have transparency again, and advocate for it. And again, for even for coders again, that we do have ethical training again. That in other words, that someone in the computer field again, that it's kind of taught in all university courses again. That they shouldn't do something which is outside all these ethical examples that we give and we train people for as well. But of course, really, it's crucial.
So the one lesson you can learn from this this issue, this problem that occurred, what would you say? What's that one lesson you can learn, and you have to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future for cybersecurity professionals?
Well, we hope something like this never happens again. That it was such a blind eye to the fact that a computer system could have been at fault. Again, that it was horrendous. About over 60 people have died before they seen justice again. That these sub-postmasters, again, that it was just willfully ignored time and time again that the computer system could have been wrong. There was, one example where Mrs. Perk, a sub-postmaster, had a customer come into her branch, and the customer withdrew £150, and the customer walked out, of course, with the money, and she noticed that the transaction was declined, so the 150 quid wasn't subtracted really from the customer, and she went to great strain to track down the customer to the house, went to the house. The customer helped her go to their bank. Their bank statement showed that indeed that 150 quid had been taken out, and of course she was allowed to keep the bank statement and go back. But these things should never have been on the onus of the sub-postmaster again. That, in other words, that was just one example and one of the many, the proofs again that there is something wrong in this system again. That
where did all the money go then? Is the question.
Well, that's it. It was a double accounting. The system was corrupt. There was another example again that they talked about the bugs in the system. They named them. There was many bugs, obviously hundreds of bugs, but they named two of the bugs after the area in which they recorded. And one of these bugs was the Dalmillington bug again. So this is where a postmaster he was using the system, and the screen froze, and he pressed enter. And he pressed enter 3 times, and the initial transaction he was doing was a transfer of £8,000. So by pressing the enter button 3 times, hoping that the system would respond, it created a £24,000 discrepancy, and he was held responsible for this again. So because ultimately the problem was that Horizon operated on a presumption of guilt model. So the sub-postmasters, were held personally liable for any financial shortfalls. Again, so this was a significant burden on them again. So they had to prove their innocence again and fill in the gaps with their own money, because again, that that it was a presumption of guilt, again, which is obviously horrendous.
Very unfortunate. Thank you, Professor Kevin Curran. Thank you for your time. Gave us a lot of time as well, and enlightened us a lot about this topic from your professional point of view. And it was really nice to have you on the show. I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this was Kevin Curran, who is a professor of cybersecurity at Ulster University and a regular technology contributor to TV, radio, and other magazines as well.